morning, everyone. Morning. It is Tuesday, April 23rd. The days keep rolling, and earnings are going to keep rolling out with big tech. Today, we start off with, or this week, start off with big tech with Tesla that comes out today after the bell. That's going to be an interesting one, considering Tesla's down 40% year to date. That's a crazy figure. But there's slowing demand, increased intense competition, price cuts, layoffs, everything. Tesla's got it all. It's had a rough past few weeks here, and shareholders are now preparing for what could be the automaker's worst result in around 7 years. The earnings report is due after the bell, after today's, which follows a fairly chaotic week for Tesla, which slashed prices in many of its major markets following notable price cuts. In U.S. billionaire CEO Elon Musk has also postponed a trip to India where he had planned to announce the company's entry into the market with a $2 to $3 billion investment, blaming very heavy Tesla obligations. So Tesla expected to report Q1 revenue of $22.5 billion and earnings per share of 50 cents. And the biggest focus may be on the automotive growth margin line, with traders looking out for comments on the AI initiatives, margin expectations, FDS take rates, as well as what the product roadmap looks like, including if the mass market Model 2 is still part of the master plan. Deutsche Bank analyst Emmanuel Rosner said that Tesla stock will need to undergo a potentially painful transition in ownership base, with investors previously focused on Tesla's EV volume and cost advantage potentially throwing in the towel. So while Musk is likely to talk up the potential of robotaxi and their businesses, Morgan Stanley warned investors to keep their hopes down, and the event should offer some important clues as to how Tesla's approaches autonomy, Gen AI, non-rule based, and why the company is seemingly rapidly stockpiling its computational horsepower. However, while we are prepared to see evidence of improved system efficiency, we ultimately believe that the path to commercialization at scale of driverless cars is much further than the market expects, warned analyst Adam Jonas. Options trading on Tesla implies a 10% price swing after the report drops. Note that Tesla's stock has fallen, like I said, close to 45% so far this year, with yesterday slipping even more, as it's among the worst performers on the S&P. So as we shape up with Tesla along with other big tech names throughout this week, UBS honestly downgraded every big tech name that's reporting earnings this week. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Analysts downgrade, right? They've been known to kind of, play around behind the scenes to get better price fills and whatnot, like upgrades on AMD last week or 2 weeks ago that caused a big sell-off. So take these with a grain of salt, right? They're most likely going to be looking to buy some of these dips. I think that big tech, maybe outside of Tesla, does kind of well. Tesla, I don't know, probably a pretty bad earnings report and reaction from it, but I think that big tech in general, the other Magnificent Seven names, do fairly well, which is going to be the next mover, next predictor for this market movement in the overall S&P and how we track. Right, we've seen a fairly significant downside move, and yesterday we had a nice little green day. Will that follow suit? If we can follow suit today with more buy side on the S&P 500, we could be nearing a very decent bottom that creates a move back into that 510, and then we kind of decide what happens from there. So we're gapping up right now. It's nothing super aggressive, but buy side is trying to step in on this, where if we get a nice green day today, that can honestly indicate that there's going to be some kind of buy pressure that steps in for the rest of the week, and then we'll go from there. As you know, right, in other news, 24/7 stock trading, that has been hitting the wire over the last 2 days, I believe. And the New York Stock Exchange, owned by International or Intercontinental Exchange, which has a ticker symbol ICE, a pretty decent name that I know a lot of people actually own, but it started polling market participants on their interest of potential implications of the exchange that trades 24/7. So they're trying to make stocks like futures that trade around the clock While the polling doesn't necessarily mean that the NYSE is considering the move to round-the-clock trading, but the move underscores growing interest in trading stocks in the off hours. So the survey comes after the 24 exchange backed by Stephen Cohen's .72 applied with the Securities and Exchange Commission to start its first 24-hour exchange. The prospect of 24-hour trading, which would likely lead to changes across the ecosystem, becomes a heavy lift for exchanges as they're supervised by the SEC. Futures trading already offers that. The options market has entered into that space with SPX trading around the clock, and if individual stocks, they already trade after hours until 8 p.m. and then they restart at 4 a.m. So there is a small window of opportunity there, but if they start going and volume and liquidity starts moving into these, we're probably going to see fairly large swings in the off hours as more market participants will enter this, like through Asia, through Europe. So that's going to be fairly interesting. Liquidity is probably going to increase, and there's going to be larger moves in this if that does eventually happen. We don't know yet. In other news, NVIDIA, right? Chips, China, right? We got all of that news yesterday. NVIDIA, nice little green day. These guys pumped it pretty hard. Chinese research institutes have been able to buy NVIDIA's high-end artificial intelligence chips through resellers, underscoring the challenges that the U.S. faces in restricting chip exports to China. And these advanced chips were embedded in server products made by Supermicro Computer and Dell Technologies, according to tenders fulfilling between November 20th and February 28th. And this was after the U.S. had widened chip export controls, although it's unclear if the chips had been acquired prior to this, but an NVIDIA spokesperson said that the tenders show that the products were exported before the U.S. restrictions and are a negligible fraction of the products sold worldwide. So NVIDIA is up here pre-market as well. Very nice pop from Friday's close. And if we start continuously moving above this 800, we have that target into that 840 where the next distribution starts. So let's talk let's talk the equity market here rather than individual stocks. We'll take a look at the S&P 500, which is catching a bit on the overnight session here, as we wanted to see yesterday. Very nice bid from yesterday, right? The buy side came in full control throughout the majority of the day, even though we managed to close back below this distribution. Right now, honestly, if we start moving above this 50-70 on the S&P 500, I like the buy side. As long as we can hold that low 60, we're in an area of limbo and indecision where the buy side would continue this momentum move, in my opinion. And I'm still looking for a bit of the long side. It's just under this like higher 50, you start getting back into that distribution where prices could rotate and create more of a range and a balanced territory, which doesn't necessarily interest me if I'm going to be looking for this trend continuation to the upside so we can move into distributions higher and higher. There is some resistance that sits at this like 50-80 and then at that 50-95 region, but as we start this, as prices move on the overnight session to the upside, I think the first move is going to be a pullback where we could identify if some of that buy side wants to come in at lower levels to continue this momentum move to the upside. I think it's very pivotal for the buy side to come in and really take control this week if they're going to really give the sellers a run for their money and step back into this market, as we've seen about a 6% drop in the overall market rate. Was this the buyable dip? We'll see how these guys explore some of this upside momentum, but I think that we get a lower high here and then we get a continuation to the upside. This buy side, I think, is currently strong for the time being. This week with earnings reports, it's going to really give us that next indication of that momentum move, and I think that they're positioning to the upside, right? There's still a lot of CTA selling that's going on, but eventually I think that we flip the script and the buy side steps in. I do think that it's going to be a short-lived buy move this week, but as long as it continues, as long as we hold on to these distributions, I want to stay on board. So that's all I have for today. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Happy trading. Check us out at TradeProAcademy.com. We do this every day. We had great trades yesterday, and we're going to continue with that momentum today. So I'll be looking for some dips to buy initially, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll wrap up what had happened on the trading session tomorrow, and we'll continue into the end of the week as we'll take a look at what happened with Tesla earnings today after the bell, and then we'll get prepared for the remainder of the big tech earnings that come out at the end of the week. So thank you all. Check out TradeProAcademy.com, community.TradeProAcademy.com, and this Friday we're going to be going live as per most Fridays with our trading in on